I'm really glad that I'm here. This is where I studied. And there was a time when I was just like everybody sitting down here and certainly taking classes at this institution. So the title of my presentation you all already know. The reason why I have telling and re in brackets, there seems to be a trend of doing that lately. Like, I think 2 years ago when Indiana University and Ohio State University did a joint annual conference together, there was something very similar because the idea of recontextualization, reframing, reinterpretation, all of these things are really important. And the reason also why I selected Contemporary Visit as the subtitle is because we have a tendency of talking about fieldwork as if it happened in the past. We have a tendency of talking about ethnic, traditional, indigenous, and folk music and cultures as if, in the past tense. There used to be this, or this is what used to happen. But I believe every single time you talk about something, it is already reliving. You are already recontextualizing it. You are relayering, and so you're adding other meanings to it. So, without further ado, I want to acknowledge Raithane Music, Nepal Music Archive, and Kathmandu University Department of Music. I would also like to acknowledge my Department of Folklore and Ethnomusicology at Indiana University, and also the Archives of Traditional Music, where I was a graduate assistant for about 2 years. And also the Mathers Museum of World Culture, which is, I think, currently IU Anthropology and Archaeology Museum, about which I'll also tell a little bit. But all of these institutions have, shaped whatever you're going to hear from me today. So just want to give that shout out. I'm going to play something, and this is going to be a sort of interactive and also breaking the ice kind of activity.
It's A1.
So, anybody can recognize the instruments that you heard on this collection? Don't look at the slide yet. What do you think is happening? Have you heard this kind of music before? Does it sound familiar? The drums sound like madhu? Yeah, good answer. What else? Do you think this is an indoor event or an outdoor event? Probably outdoor. Okay. Good. Anybody? Anything to add? Anything to contribute? Asari type ko as well. And then? Poschim tirako. Okay. So, this is what we are doing right now is something that goes beyond the usual music appreciation thing that we often do in academia, right? Like we put on a tape or we put on a record and then we say, oh, these are the instruments, or this is what I hear. But what is also really important is the context behind, or what added information can we accrue from this recording. And as it happens, the Terence Bech Collection has some of the best field notes I've ever seen as a graduate archival assistant, as well as a student of ethnomusicology, because it is very meticulous in terms of where it was recorded, the age of performers, like the gender of performers, which is, I think, pretty groundbreaking for that time. And also, not only that, Bech wouldn't just, write, this is where this was recorded. Bech also used to write, this person is from so-and-so place, but I recorded this music here. So, there's no confusion between whether this music was from this part of the country or whether it was, someone else who emigrated there or mobilized themselves there. So as it happens, this song is a Juari, Majhi dialect, performed anytime and any place, special occasions by males and females. Mado, yes, absolutely correct. Manjira, dholak, basuri are used in presentation or in performance. And an amazing thing that comes quite often in the Bech collection is every time Bech asked the performers, like, "Yo poila ka sunnu bhako cha? Kata sunnu bhako cha?" They always said, "We've never heard this in the radio," or "We've never seen the lyrics printed in the newspaper." And we'll come across something really interesting in the next musical example. But we got to move forward, right? And the performers are Mrs. Sukhmaya Majhi, 48 years old, Harpa Dev Majhi, Iman Singh Majhi, and Lakshman Majhi, April 26, 1968. So this is awesome. From Raja village in Ramechap. So now I want to give a little bit of background about what brings me to the Bech collection, what have I got to do with the Bech collection, अनि म कसरी पुगेँ, like के कुराले मलाई interest लाग्यो. It was the very first semester ethnomusicology को यहाँ KU मा. अनि Santosh and Jeevan are my classmates who are sitting right there, you can ask them. Gert Wegner sir को चाहिँ पहिलो semester को seminar ma, he mentioned quite a few interesting things. And one of the things was that one of the largest or most amazing collection of Nepali music was not in Nepal, was not stored here, but it was in this university called Indiana University, which I had not heard before that. Only what he also said was it was made by this person called Terence R. Bech. So back of my head, it just stayed there. Maybe the root, it sort of seed germinated. Especially we had to read a paper in the music of Kathmandu Valley. I think it was the third year. And one of the paper was Gert Wegner sir's paper on the state of ethnomusicology in Nepal and also why archiving is important. And of course, for those of you who remember, Kathmandu University, त्यो बेलामा भक्तपुरमा थियो. And I think we had that little small climate controlled quote unquote archive. And we used to, I think we only got to hear it once or twice when we were doing DAT field recording practice. And later on, after I graduated from KU, academic-wise agadi pursue गर्ने क्रममा, guess what happened? I thought, okay, भुइँचालो पनि आएको छ, I want to do something. And what really hit me was visiting all these different places inside the valley, and valley ko चाहिँ हुन्छ नि अब डाँडाहरुमा, hillsहरु nearby the valley, looking at these performance spaces, looking at the performance venues, and performance venue destroy damage भएको देखिए, हैन? अनि त्यो देख्दाखेरि चाहिँ what I felt was it is not just the loss of a space, के त्यो स्पेसमा particular part of the year or particular time of the year कुन music performance भइरहेको हुन्थ्यो होला, dance भइरहेको हुन्थ्यो होला, even that might no longer happen because that space is gone. And performers are gone. So I started questioning my own attitude towards ethnomusicology. जुन बेला चाहिँ म कुनै जमानामा ethnomusicology, preservation, conservation भन्ने चाहिँ सोचेर बसिरहेको थिएँ भने I started thinking about what if preservation and conservation is not enough? What if it has to also be जसरी collectivist एउटा approach हुन्छ स्कलरहरुको जे पनि कलेक्ट गर्ने, what if it also needs to be giving back to the community, हैन? जुन चाहिँ पछि गएर अब dissemination भनेर 4th year मा सिकेँ मैले. जुन चाहिँ whatever you have, you're giving it to the community भनेर. And that is how I landed in Indiana. Fall semester मा जानुपर्ने फन्डिङ थिएन अनि so I deferred to the spring semester. Plane land हुँदा त चारैतिर हिउँ हिउँ अनि that was the first time I experienced minus 20 degrees Celsius. तर क्लास चाहिँ कहिले बन्द नहुने. So those were fun times. And to introduce Archives of Traditional Music, 1948 मा George Herzog, officially 1954 by George List, ले चाहिँ established गरेको एउटा institute हो, not for profit. The interesting thing is ethnomusicology students हरूलाई चाहिँ Society for Ethnomusicology को establishment time र Archives of Traditional Music establishment time चाहिँ is very near. So that tells you a lot about how much archives have to do with the field or the discipline and how much the discipline also shapes archives. हैन अनि पहिला पहिला चाहिँ अलिक problematic नाम थियो जस्तै Archives of Folk and Primitive Music भनेर. And later on by time pass हुँदै गएपछि started reflecting like whatever is in use at the moment and contemporarization पनि हुँदै गयो. संसारभरिबाट as old as 1890 देखिको musical recordings हरू artifacts हरू अनि a lot of them like 7,000 वटा त wax cylinders नै छ. I created a small short film about that and I was showing the guys at NMA, which is just fascinating how संसारभरिको यति धेरै कुराहरू like which I never would have thought कि Indiana University मा it would end up being there. But then I also have to remember कि as a R1 institution or research institution, maybe that is the entire goal of academia, whereby you are making sure that you are procuring things जुन चाहिँ स्टुडेन्टहरूले रिसर्च गर्नको लागि युज होस् अथवा प्रिजर्भेसन अप्रोच पनि भयो तर त्यही साइडमा एकाडेमिक अथवा एजुकेसनल अप्रोच पनि साइड बाई साइड नै चलिरहेको हुन्छ. So out of 100,000 plus recordings, as you can see, there are so many of them. मैले लास्ट लाइन चाहिँ किन एड गरे भने त्यो चाहिँ थिएन. जुन चाहिँ बोर्न डिजिटल कलेक्सन्सहरू जुन चाहिँ हामी जस्तो स्टुडेन्टहरू अथवा स्कलर्सहरूले they end up doing field work and then they end up depositing at the archives. So the list is constantly growing. And I just want you to meet 2018 to Suyash to talk about what it means to be a graduate archival assistant. Like some of you might be wondering, like archival assistant, like I have heard about teaching assistant, I have heard about research assistant, but I realize that there are so many ethnomusicology students here who might also be wondering what are the different ways in which you can continue or further pursue ethnomusicology, right? So let's hear from Suyash.
Where is it? Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Hi, I'm Suyash from the past. The year is 2018 and I'm so excited to be here at Indiana University. Archives of Traditional Music. This is the vault. It's usually off axis. I'm pretty sure you're here to know what I do as an archival assistant. Every archival assistant or graduate assistant here at the archives plays undeniably an important role because we're there not just to assist patrons who make a visit to the archives to see what we have. We oftentimes make sure that they're having access to whatever it is that they're wanting to listen to. And then every time we have a new collection come in, we help in the acquisition process, the cataloging process. Things as simple as sorting things out, because even that takes a lot of time. And then there's the usual where, all of the stuff that we already have digitized, depending on our expertise of geography or language, or go through the old field notes and things like that, and maybe suggest edits. So what I oftentimes do is listen to recordings or archival stuff and suggest edits. I think we are also very much an important part of every public outreach program that the Archives of Traditional Music does. We have annual, monthly, and weekly events like the ATM afternoon concert or lecture series, and we as graduate assistants help with organizing and setting up, greeting visitors and patrons during events like First Thursdays. What we do is have a little booth to ourselves. We'll take record player, take some vinyls with us, have our listeners play a little game about match a continent with a musical instrument or place all of the cards of media formats in a row correctly. I think being here at the archives is not just important to me educationally, but also I get to geek out and nerd out about media, about technology, about recordings, and about Nepal. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Suyash. So as you heard, the day in the life of an archival assistant is more or less classma je padhai bhayo, or like whatever you're studying in papers and books, you get to practice it firsthand. अनि त्यसले चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्छ भने एउटा it also adds another layer to your own academic self, in the sense when I was constantly reading things about Nepal, about books or body, and then going to the archives to work on the Bech collection would often mean that I was saying, hey, I think that thing is applicable here. Or once in a while you'd also think, why isn't this thing being asked? Or like, why is Bech asking this question? Like, we would have been more careful in terms of asking certain questions as a bully, or not like assuming things or not taking things for granted. On Katipai case, it used to be like, this guy like has missed out this thing, like totally galat bujhirako cha. Ani it is my time to like make a small comment saying, like Bech understands this as this, tara वास्तवमा interlocutorले चाहिँ नेपालीमा यो भनेको हो. So, in the future, like whoever accesses those very files, उनीहरूले त मेरो एउटा चाहिँ institutional memory त पायो नि त त्यहाँ, like traces of my own हुन्छ नि analysis of what I thought was going on. So, Sivajiले introduced गराइसक्नुभयो. Terence Bech was a student at Indiana University and also a Peace Corp volunteer. And I'm not really sure कुन चाहिँ पहिला भयो, like I think he came first to Nepal, and then in the course of traveling across Nepal, he started thinking like, wow, like I can actually document these things. And to my knowledge, based on correspondence letters, Indiana University le record garna like tools like open reel tapes blank tapes jun त्यो बेलामा नेपालमा research गर्नलाई used to be a big deal. त्यो चाहिँ उताबाट पठाएर, अनि that used to be the case for a lot of scholars. Like university, कुनै पनि युनिभर्सिटीले टुल्सहरू media formats पठाइदिने, अनि उनीहरूको part of the promise चाहिँ के भन्दा, I'll record things and send it back to you so that you can acquisition and things like that. So यो चाहिँ टेरेन्स बेकको अब होली पनि आउँदैछ हैन, एउटा रंगीला फोटो पनि राखेँ मैले त्यही कारणले. अनि Bech was also the director at USEF, and the other thing was also a mountaineer, like avid mountaineer. अब अस्ति कतै 2012 को हो कि कहिलेको एउटा आर्टिकलमा dude was like going to some place in the Arctic, like he's old but still he wants to do adventure at the same time. अनि लास्ट पछिल्लो पटक अब यहाँ कतिजना सोध्नु होला, अनि लाइक टेरेन्स बेकले चाहिँ what does like Terence Bech feel about this, or like त्यो question होला. Full disclaimer, I think 2009 or 2012 was त्यो के भन्छ final correspondence जुन चाहिँ मैले आर्काइभमा देखेको छु. त्यसपछि like Terence Bech नेदरल्यान्ड्समा हो भनेर मैले सुनेको हो. And I have been trying my best to like sending out emails, different email addressesमा physical mail हुन्छ कि हैन, tried my best to no success. So I don't know, maybe we'll have to like collaborate with other people who are already experts in one of these things, maybe Peace Corp Volunteer or like avid like mountaineering गर्ने अथवा त्यस्तो केही अथवा USEF भयो, to find out कि like what about Bech, like where is Bech मलाई. अनि यो Bech collection त अघि नै भनिहाल्नु भयो हैन. अनि Bech collection को बारेमा चाहिँ स्कलर्सहरूले के भन्नुहुन्छ, like what are scholars talking about it हैन. Like I have compiled a few statements from like 1983 भन्दा 1969 देखिकै छ. जस्तै Frank Gillis, director at the Archives of Traditional Music त्यो बेलाको, Terence Bechलाई लेटरमा चाहिँ के लेख्नु भएको छ भने, the definitive collection of the sounds of Nepal. And I think you'll keep hearing this a lot from many other scholars as well. त्यसपछि उप्रेतीले 1983 मा the richest Nepali musical resource anywhere in the world भन्नुभएको छ. That is not far from the truth, absolutely true, because I have yet to encounter any other collection that is so magnanimous and so detailed in terms of Nepali cultural ethnographic documentation. त्यसपछि अब 2004 तिर जाउँ, Dr. Wagnerको आर्टिकल मैले भनिगएँ, the most astounding collection of Nepalese music recordings भयो. 2011 मा हाम्रै लोचन सरले चाहिँ एउटा आर्टिकलमा भन्नुभएको थियो कि it has the potential to contribute immensely to future research. And it will help researchers look at the evolution of culture and music in Nepal, and also benefit students of traditional Nepali music and dance. I would also like to add that, evolution, but also migration and cultural continuity despite changes. and also cultural transmission between different ethnicities and identities in Nepal. Last month, Dikshant Upreti, to whom I spoke just last night, he got his PhD recently at Indiana University in folklore and ethnomusicology. Mero senior, and Dikshantले को विचारमा चाहिँ के हो भन्दा, the connections and the importance that emanate from the Bech Collection of memory, of the connection between the past and the present, of home and diaspora, all linked through visual and oral channels. And Dikshant is very much true and also a little bit different from most of the other statements here. You know, Dikshant has also worked on not only the audio collection, but also the photographic collections, which are in the Bech Collection. We need to know what Bech himself was thinking about when this collection was not only made, but also catalogued in 1978 by Anne Helen Ross, another important name. You should not be talking about Terence Bech without talking about Anne Helen Ross, because without Anne Helen Ross's compilation and the whole cataloging project, none of this would have been possible for any of the future researchers. So Bech thinks it's going to make an important contribution towards improving the quality and theoretical depth of ethnomusicological research by providing not only explaining musical structure with reference to non-musical aspects of culture, which I really love about the Bech Collection, is that यो चाहिँ फलानो ठाउँको रेकर्डिङ हो भनेर छैन के. It's like यो फलानो ठाउँको रेकर्डिङ हो, यो रेकर्डिङको करेस्पोन्डिङ बाजा यो हो, त्यो बाजा चाहिँ आइयु म्युजियममा मैले यो नम्बरमा राखेको छु, र यो म्युजिकल रेकर्डिङको करेस्पोन्डिङ फोटोग्राफ चाहिँ फोटोग्राफिक स्लाइड नम्बर यतिमा हेर्नु होला, which is I guess the most detailed thing I've ever seen, which is कसैले पनि म्युजिकल रेकर्डिङ गर्यो भने पनि you'll be able to write 3 pages easily just based on the field notes. हैन. अर्को कुरा, details of one musical cultural system with reference to variant forms. एउटै गीतलाई अर्को तरिकाले बुझ्ने को छ कि, एउटै गीतमा बज्ने बाजा अरूहरू पनि छ कि, एउटै गीतलाई प्रेजेन्ट गर्ने तरिका अरूहरू पनि छ कि, त्यो भयो. अनि एक्सटेन्सिभ एथनोग्राफी इन्भेन्टरी मैले भनिरहेँ. अनि precise translation of texts, which I really love about the Bech collection is Bech used to take field notes, and कतिपय ठाउँमा चाहिँ you also find notebooks that are written in Nepali Devanagari script by the man himself. हैन. अब लाइफ हिस्ट्रीको कुरा गर्ने हो भने, अथवा सङको टेक्स्टको कुरा गर्ने हो भने, सङको लिरिक्सको मिनिङको कुरा गर्ने हो भने, इट्स अल देयर. र अर्को कुरा चाहिँ सेपरेट एलिमेन्ट्स अफ म्युजिकल ट्रेडिसन भयो, जुन चाहिँ सोर्सेसहरूमा एक्जिस्टिङ डकुमेन्टेड भएको छ कि छैन, त्यो कुरामा पनि आई थिङ्क बेक वाज really curious about and also very careful about. Now I'm going to play one song and also probably ask you a question. This is also a class activity.
56A8.
यो गीत हो छोराको बिलौना. परदेशमा गएको छोराले घरमा बसेको आमालाई सम्झेर यो आमाको 10 नाला दुध पिएर आमाको उपयमा बिलौना गर्दै छोराले यो गीत गाउँछ, जो कि छोराको बिलौना. अरुमालाई सम्झन छैन आमा तिमीलाई बिर्सन सक्दिन. अरुमालाई सम्झन छैन आमा तिमीलाई बिर्सन सक्दिन. दशमा हामीलाई गर्भस्थानमा राख्यो, जन्माएर धरतीमा हातयो दुःख पायो. छातीमाथि राखी राखी दुध खुवाएर बालकालको कोहर मैला सुगर बनाएर अरुमालाई सम्झन छैन तिमीलाई बिर्सन सक्दिन. अरुमालाई सम्झन छैन तिमीलाई बिर्सन सक्दिन.
Awesome. So I have a question. अब यहाँ field notes मा के लेखेको छ भने, महाशंकर देवकोटा 32 years old, Brahmin from Tibrikot, Bohra village, Jumla, May 15, 1968. And रमाइलो कुरा यहाँ बेकले के पनि लेखेको छ, अघि नै मैले भने नि एउटै रेकर्डिङको like what are the different other contexts like outside of the documentation. यहाँ के लेखेको छ भने originally performed by a shepherd in the village, in the forest near Bohra village, Jumla. Majority of the original words differ from the recorded version by Mahashankar Devkota. Like यो Mahashankar Devkotaले चाहिँ आफ्नै लिरिक्स हाल्यो, ट्युन चाहिँ फेरि त्यही हो. अनि फेरि Dharmaraj Thapa, a famous Nepali folk singer, has performed this song with the original lyrics over Radio Nepal. I was not able to find it on YouTube, guys. Maybe somebody needs to help me so that we can do a comparative analysis of what's going on here. So I have a few questions for you. Has anyone heard Dharmaraj Thapa's version of this tune? Show of hands. कसैले सुन्नु भएको छैन?
I haven't heard Dharmaraj Thapa's version of the tune, but I think Vardhan Shrestha did a version where Nepali
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really amazing. That you speak to the third question I have. अनि दुईटै सिङ्गरको एउटै ट्युन हुनु, like what do you guys think? Folk musicमा किनकि त पढेकै भयो हामीले, मेलोडी एउटै भयो, लिरिक्स चाहिँ फरक हुन गयो के भयो होला त हैन? Even if you don't have an answer, just like ruminate on it, like think about it. अर्को कुरा चाहिँ यो धेरै स्कलर्सहरुकोमा सेकेन्ड क्वेसन चाहिँ स्पेशली एथनो स्टुडेन्ट्स मेक अ नोट अफ दिस क्वेसन किनकि इट्स रियली इम्पोर्टेन्ट. रेडियो नेपाल र नेपाल गभर्नमेन्टको चाहिँ पहिलेदेखि एउटा देयर इज अ हिस्ट्री अफ सेन्डिङ सिङ्गर्स टु हुन्छ नि अक्रस द कन्ट्री टु कलेक्ट फोक सङ्ग्स अनि पर्फर्म दिज सङ्ग्स इन अ स्ट्यान्डर्डाइज्ड म्यानर. लाइक रेडियो नेपालको स्टुडियोमा आएर हुन्छ नि अब एथनिक अथवा ट्रेडिसनल हुन्छ नि इन्डिजिनियस इन्स्ट्रुमेन्ट युज गर्नुको सट्टा एउटा पर्टिकुलर देशभक्ति फ्लेभर देखाउनको लागि इट वाज लाइक स्ट्रिप डाउन टु द बेयर हुन्छ नि मिनिमम. अनि यो बाजा हुन्छ, यो बाजा हुन्छ, यो बाजा मात्रै हुन्छ भनेर. सो त्यो कुरा मध्यनजरमा राखेर वाट इज योर ओपिनियन अन पिपल टेकिङ अ फोक मेलोडी एन्ड एडिङ देयर ओन लिरिक्स versus the government standardized stuff? Right on. Your question. Anybody has any opinion about this? Hazur, please. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I think that's such a amazing aspect to your question. Okay? Like, कुनै पनि singer, despite being famous, how much of things change उनीहरूको repertoire to I think cater to Radio Nepal's needs. Radio Nepal has to खोजिरहेछ, so this is what is gonna happen. अनि I think ethnomusicology we often have to keep this in mind कि हिजो अस्ति पनि कुरा भइरहेको थियो हाम्रो ट्रेडिसन भन्ने बित्तिकै लाइक कन्टिन्यू स्मल एन्ड स्मल लिटल बिट्स एन्ड पिसेस अफ चेन्ज भइ नै रहेको हुन्छ. तर त्यो चेन्ज पनि कन्टिन्युटीको रूपमा चाहिँ हामीले लिनुपर्छ किनभने इफ वी आर टकिङ अबाउट कल्चर एन्ड ट्रेडिसन दे आर भेरी डाइनामिक. उनीहरूलाई स्ट्याग्नेन्ट रूपमा ट्रेडिसन अथवा अथेन्टिक भनेको यही नै हो अनि समथिङ एल्स क्यानट बी अथेन्टिक अथवा इट क्यानट चेन्ज भन्नु चाहिँ इट माइट बी अ लिटल बिट प्रब्लमेटिक हैन. प्लिज डु. हजुर
1959 मा महेन्द्रको एक राजा एक देश एक भाषा एक देश काइन्ड अफ लागि हैन.
हजुर
त्यसपछिको फेनोमेनन चाहिँ सङ्कलनकर्ताहरूलाई ठाउँमा पठाउने people like Kumar Neupane,
yeah,
and they'll come back with songs. But because languages other than Nepali was banned, हैन नेपाली करण गर्नु पर्यो कतिवटा कि
हजुर
हैन. अनि त्यसमा चाहिँ अब अथेन्टिसिटी चाहिँ कहाँ खोज्ने भन्ने जेनरल अडियन्सले चाहिँ त्यसलाई अथेन्टिक भन्ने पनि छ नि त, इन्क्लुडिङ अस हैन. जस्तो कि तामाङ सेलो जम्मै नेपालीमा गएका छन् के
हजुर.
ल्याङ्ग्वेज चाहिँ ठुलो अपरेसनमा थियो नि त नेपाली बाहेक
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for adding. दुवैजना किनभने यसले चाहिँ के पनि झल्काउँछ भन्दा to even think about an ethnomusicological question, त्यो context बिर्सेर it doesn't work. अब यसलाई मैले ट्रान्सक्राइब गरेर I can put a हुन्छ नि sheet music in front of me, तर त्यो like behind the scenes के भइरहेछ त त्यो नबुझिकन we'll never get to हुन्छ नि whatever little truth we all may find, होइन? Although there's not one truth, there are different ways of understanding the same thing. Thank you so much for adding. Learning from the Bech collection, the first thing I want to point out is Terence Bech's path has crossed with other scholars too. Don Messerschmidt, I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that name, Johan Reinhardt, Dorval Vishta, like famous anthropologist from Nepal. अनि रमाइलो पक्ष के हुन जान्छ भने हामीले कुनै पनि स्कलरको बारेमा रिसर्च गर्दाखेरि इट अलवेज हेल्प्स टु लुक फर कन्टेम्पोरेरिज के यही बेला फिल्डमा चाहिँ को गएको थियो त हैन लाइक हु एल्स वाज देयर एट दिस टाइम डिड दे मीट फर्स्ट लाइक आई थिंक सम अफ दीज वर पीस कोर भलन्टियर्स सो देयर इज अ हाई चान्स कि दे मेट अनि इन्फर्मेसन साटासाट त हुन्छ स्कलर्सहरुमा आइसोलेटेड त भइदैन सो अहिले बेक कलेक्सनमा मैले एउटा च्यालेन्ज के पाइरहेको छु भने I'm finding it really hard to get any other information other than जुन field notes मा छ जुन correspondence letters मा छ अथवा कुनै published book मा छ तर what if we are able to हुन्छ नि reach out to people who were also in Nepal during Bech's time अनि जो चाहिँ बेकसँग भेटेको evidence नै छ क्या like that has been published. You know, I think Yana Potier writes about Johan Reinhardt and Bech being at the same time in the field documenting Raute traditions. So that's going to be like a huge thing for us. Hey, okay, so if we're not able to get to Bech, like we need to get with somebody, you know? And I think research ko daira pani badaउँछ जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई. Like we'll be able to focus on many other different aspects which we might have ourselves missed. You एकदमै सानो भयो, I really apologize. तर dear God. What I'm really trying to show is the kind of workflow you will see me working at the archives every time I open the Bech collection. I've also been to the MPP and I think there's a slightly different workflow. Every open reel tape ko a word file sa. And I found it a little bit unintuitive to work on that. Spreadsheet it was easier because I was able to cross-link easily यताको अडियो रेकर्डिङको त्यो पनि दुईटा कलेक्सन छ अडियोको एउटा 1967 एउटा 1975 हैन अब यो चाहिँ 1975 को एक्जाम्पल हो तर आई वाज एबल टु लाइक से ए ओके यसमा यो भनेछ त व्हाइ कान्ट आई अल्सो गो टु द फोटोग्राफिक स्प्रेडशीट एन्ड फाइन्ड सिमिल्यारिटीज or like find similar themes अथवा फलानो एथनिक कम्युनिटीको गाना छ भने what kind of musical instrument are we talking about here हैन अब त्यो डकुमेन्टेसन त छ. And I think that really helps in terms of Jasari Agina, we need to reach out to scholars other than Bech money. We need to look outside of the musical recording as well to figure out what this collection truly holds. On top of that, what I've also tried to do from myself as a student is presenting on the Bech collection. This is probably my fourth presentation in a sense. The first one is this one. I was in my, I think, second year MA student presenting on the Bech collection. And classroom ko assignment पनि त्यस्तै किसिमको थियो. कस्तो थियो भने assignment चाहिँ एउटा आर्काइभमा जाऊ, आर्काइभमा गएर ओरिजिनल रिसर्च गरेर try to figure out a way of saying mobilities कसरी भइरहेको छ. चाहे त्यो स्कलरको मोबिलिटिजको कुरा गर्ने हो हामीले, चाहे त्यो म्युजिकल इन्स्ट्रुमेन्टको मोबिलिटिजको कुरा गर्ने हो हामीले, चाहे त्यो पर्फर्मर्सहरुको मोबिलिटिजको अथवा कम्युनिटिजहरुको मोबिलिटीको कुरा भयो. So this was the first presentation I did and we were basically talking about this idea कि nothing is stagnant. के मान्छेले जब आर्काइभ भनेर सोध्छ नि के सोध्छ अरे भने stereotypically हैन it's a old dusty place हैन त्यो हलिउड मुभी नेशनल ट्रेजर अथवा वन नाइट एट द म्युजियममा जस्तो हैन धुलै धुल धुसरित ठाउँ हैन जहाँ चाहिँ अब डड्डै डड्डामा चाहिँ डकुमेन्टेसन भएको छ हैन इङ्क पनि उडिसक्यो तर द काइन्ड अफ आर्गुमेन्ट दैट आई वाज डुइङ विथ दिस पेपर वाज नो लाइक एनी टाइम अ स्कलर or anybody steps into the archives their imaginations are already taking flight So archive becomes a sort of launch pad, okay, like plane udaउने ठाउँ, where their ideas take shape, where they are able to decide कि okay, म नेपालमा field work गर्न जाँदैछु, this is what someone else has already done. अनि अब scholars gaze भन्ने कुरा त हामीलाई थाहै छैन. You read about something, you expect that, you end up expecting that. तर आर्काइभ्सले के पनि दर्शाउँछ भन्दाखेरि यो कुरा चाहिँ मैले गर्न सक्ने रहेछु अथवा I don't see this, so this is where I can go. Usually I think we focus so much on literature review or lit review that we often forget that there are other ways of reviewing the discipline. Okay? And I think archives are like a wonderful way of reviewing whatever has happened so far. And how can I proceed further? The other thing I really found amazing during this research was Anna Singh is a brilliant author. Friction is one of her books. The other one is called Mushrooms at the End of the World. Highly suggested, anybody should read that. That's a really good book. त्यो किताबमा चाहिँ essentially, I won't read the whole quote, तर के कुरा छ भन्दा कुनै पनि कुराको meaning निकाल्नको लागि there will be friction inevitably. अनि मैले चाहिँ यसलाई कसरी बुझेँ भन्दा there needs to be difficult conversations happening. We need to ask those difficult questions. I think we are no longer in a position where we can say, Terence Bekle yo garyo, wow, awesome, for Nepal, yay, end of story. No, I think we need to be in a position to say, okay, but why Nepal? Why was this person, what was the intention? What was the intention behind scholars coming to Nepal, researching our music? Historically, this side of the world, there's always been a lot of things going on. Is there a hint of proxy colonialism happening? Is this a sense of sort of hegemony, or is this a sense of academic capital accrue गर्ने अर्को तरिका हो कि whereby the people don't get any credit for whatever they are contributing to and scholars take all the credit for whatever they're doing. Of course, in the Bech collection we can see that people are acknowledged, people are credited, but at the same time we can always also think about, at least what I was thinking about is, because of this person's privilege as a Peace Corp volunteer, as a USCF director, as a foreign scholar in Nepal, this person probably had more mobility than mobilities held by musicians in their particular social systems. Okay? I think Bech was in a position to say, hey, I'm in this village, I'm going to record you. Whereas people probably in a country that has just opened up to foreigners, we're not in a position to negotiate. अनि त्यहाँ power dynamics कस्तो थियो त? I think I want to also raise that question. And that's something we need to be mindful of when we're talking about any collection, be it Bech collection or any other collection. The other experience I think was more practical. You're saying Mathers Museum of World Culture, जसरी Archives of Traditional Music has musical recordings and photographs, Mathers Museum of World Culture has musical instruments collected by Terence R. Bech. So one of my summer was spent as an intern at Mathers Museum, where I was learning how to catalog musical instruments. Okay? I used to just think, yo bazama yati euta tar cha yelle baneko was enough. But apparently you have to measure meticulously, you have to write down the condition of the instrument, you have to write down its entire, कहिले एक्विजिसन भएको अनि कसले क्याटलग गरेको, मभन्दा अगाडि क्याटलग गर्ने मान्छे को थियो. All of those institutional memoryमा चाहिँ I was able to add my own positionality and say, yes, I'm from Nepal and this is what I see in front of me and this is what Bech would have seen. अनि यो इन्स्ट्रुमेन्ट त कसरी नेपालबाट त्यत्रो जर्नी गरेर went to the United States. I'm so glad it is safe. हुन्छ नि, it is at least there. And at the same time I also began wondering in what condition were these instruments collected again? Were the artists or traditional instrument makers fully compensated? Was this from a traditional instrument maker जसले चाहिँ performersहरूले बजाउने नै बाजा बनाएको थियो कि it was more for a tourist purpose को लागि? किनभने remember Terence Bech नेपालमा आउनु भनेको नेपालको borders outsiders को लागि खोलेको 2 दशक पनि भएको थिएन. We have to keep that in mind. So what was going on behind the scenes? Of course, one summer is not enough to go through all 120 instruments. These are some of the thoughts that I had and which I hope that some of you will be able to probably carry out in the future. The other thing we did was प्रेजेन्टेसन भनेको जहिले पनि एकाडेमिक हुनुपर्छ भन्ने कुराहरू चाहिँ म अलिक विरोध गर्छु होइन. What I believe is you need to learn how to make it more contemporary and more interesting. जुन तरिकाले चाहिँ जसले जसरी बुझ्छ अथवा आफूले कसरी चाहिँ त्यसलाई ब्रेकडाउन गरेर त्यसको चाहिँ अब रिसर्च इन्टेग्रिटी एकाडेमिक इन्टेग्रिटी आफ्नो ठाउँमा छ, तर हाउ डु यु मेक इट मोर इन्ट्रेस्टिङ अनि हाउ डु यु मेक स्योर कि पिपल आर मोर इन्ट्रेस्टेड इन योर रिसर्च भन्ने तरिकाले. सो वाट वी डिड वाज हेलोविनको बेला थियो एन्ड Isaiah was in the middle. Isaiah was working on a collection which was from 1913 देखि 1917 को wax cylinder recording को collection मा काम गर्दै थियो. त्यो collection चाहिँ I think northern part of Canada मा indigenous community हरुमा गरिएको recording को बारेमा थियो हैन. Whereas I was working on the Bech collection. अनि हामीहरु दुई जनाले के गर्यौं भने अब ATM listening party series हुन्थ्यो हाम्रो. And then we did this nightmares in the field because guess what? Everybody loves talking about the positive sides of fieldwork. Everybody talks about fieldwork and research in very romanticized way. But I believe that somebody has to talk about the horrors too. You know? And we sort of like presenting this and people absolutely loved it. You know? So what I did was I wrote a small narrative sort of story kind of about the Bech collection and Bech ko चाहिँ माउन्टेनियरिङ एक्सपिडिसनमा एकदम झन्डै दुर्घटना भएको सिनेरियोमा अनि आइजियाको चाहिँ इट वाज अबाउट इन्डिजिनियस कम्युनिटीमा जाँदाखेरि हाउ स्कलर्स द बिगेस्ट नाइटमेयर इन आवर डिसिप्लिन्स टुडे इज लाइक लर्निङ अबाउट हुन्छ नि हाउ स्कलर्स अफन टाइम्स वर नट कन्सिडरेट अफ वाट एभर रिसर्च एथिक्स दे शुड हेभ ह्याड or like at least common sense पनि नभएको कुराहरू. So we created that story and we presented it. हैन त्यो चाहिँ रेडियो ड्रामा जस्तै गरेको थियो हामीले पाँचजना पाँचवटा डिफ्रेन्ट क्यारेक्टर भएर हैन त्यस्तो भोइस निकालेर. It was just awesome. I wish I could do it again. अनि the other one that I did was my own exhibit on Terence Bech collection किनभने अब म्याथर्स म्युजियममा पनि एक्सपिरियन्स गेन भयो म्युजिकल इन्स्ट्रुमेन्ट्सको बारेमा आर्काइभ्स अफ ट्रेडिसनल म्युजिकमा त भइ नै रहेको थियो. अनि यही ठाउँमा चाहिँ वान अफ आवर प्रोफेसर्सको चाहिँ एक्जिबिट सर्टेन इयर्सदेखि बसिरहेको रहेछ. अनि आई रिच्ड आउट टु एलन बुर्डेट, डक्टर एलन बुर्डेट, डिरेक्टर एट द आर्काइभ्स अफ ट्रेडिसनल म्युजिक. ही वाज भेरी सपोर्टिभ. वाज लाइक यस गो हेड, यु नो इफ यु क्यान डु समथिङ लेट्स मेक इट ह्यापन. अनि आई वाज एबल टु क्रिएट के भन्छ यो सानो एक्जिबिट वेयर आई वाज फोकसिङ अन सेलेक्टेड एस्पेक्ट्स अफ बेक कलेक्सन. क्या जस्तै बेकको लेटर ब्याक होम एउटा कुरा भयो. अब यहाँ हेर्नुभयो भने बेकले चाहिँ यु हेयर एउटा ओपन रिल टेप रेकर्डर चाहिँ युज गरेको मैले राखेको थिएँ एन्ड अ माइक्रोफोन द्याट इज भेरी सिमिलर टु द वान्स बेक युज्ड. अनि बेक चाहिँ बिचमा बसेर हुन्छ नि पिपल आर प्लेइङ ड्रम्स एन्ड सिङ्गिङ. अनि अब सबै कुरा त मसँग थिएन. अनि आफूले नेपालबाट लगेको सारङ्गी जुन भरत सरले मेरो लागि बनाइदिनु भएको थियो त्यो पनि त्यहाँ गयो सो द्याट पिपल आर एबल टु सी कि ए सारङ्गी भने यस्तो हुन्छ. बिकज दे अलवेज गेट कन्फ्युज बिट्विन नेपाली फोक सारङ्गी एन्ड इन्डियन क्लासिकल सारङ्गी है. सो इट वाज अ गुड एजुकेसनल एक्सर्साइज एज वेल. अनि अब ढाका टोपी भयो अनि यो ढाकाको लुगा यस्तो हुन्छ भन्ने कुरा, फोटोग्राफ्स भयो, कठपुतली भयो. एन्ड द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेन्ट वान इज प्रोबेबली बेकको म्याप जुन चाहिँ will come later on. And you say one of the plots from that, and I found this exercise incredibly helpful. I was so dependent and getting comfortable with academic writing. This helped me go to something that I would have never thought of doing. Like how do I write concisely in 100 words about such a so-and-so collection? That's a ramro exercise when you student ko lagi. So I think as professors, we should also be aware of these things. And assignment दिँदाखेरि यस्तो खालको दिनु पर्यो क्रिएटिभ असाइनमेन्ट जुनले चाहिँ स्टुडेन्टहरूको पनि क्रिएटिभिटी पनि पिक हुन्छ and they themselves get interested in things like archives and museums. And one of the things that I really love about the Bech collection was how not just Bech collection but the archives of traditional music is how we are able to be accessible to scholars, whoever wants to visit. But there are certain collections that are not allowed to be played outside of cultural contexts, especially sensitive indigenous materials. But it's really amazing and fascinating to see well-renowned musicians come into the archives just to get a glance of Smile, you're on camera. It's really amazing to see scholars coming to the archives and getting a like hint of whatever musical collection exists there. I'm gonna be playing a small audio that is from Maestro Shyam Nepali's visit to the archives of traditional music, and I was really lucky to once again spend like I think 3 or 4 days with Shyamji, helping him with Terence Bech Collection, especially Gandharva Music Collection, and he really loved it. Like I think यो कन्सर्टको सुरुवातमा भन्नु पनि हुन्छ उहाँले कि आँसु नै आयो यो सुनेर किनभने कति वर्षपछि like you are getting to hear old maestros voicesहरू अनि many of these songs have not like I think being performed as well. So there's a song that Shyamji sort of learned by ear. Oral tradition was such a beautiful moment. And I think this is just amazing. I think this connects to what Bhushan Bhai was saying at the NMA the other day. जुन चाहिँ collection को digitized form सुनेर आँसु आयो भनेर नि Bhushan Bhaiले हैन. One of my advisors in my MA exam उहाँले चाहिँ के भन्नुभएको थियो भने आर्काइभमा कुनै पनि कुरा डिजिटाइज हुँदाखेरि it becomes sort of a binarized thing, 0 and 1 हुन्छ. तर त्यो binarized thing like rehumanize गर्नको लागि repatriation is a beautiful like thing भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ हामीले पढेको छौँ. Of course we have to be mindful of repatriate हुने community को चाहिँ accessibility त्यो बाधा बनाउनुमा छ कि छैन त. जस्तै अब मसँग कुनै पुरानो collection छ अरे तर if the community does not have a device to play those things, will that be a sensitive repatriation? It won't be. So उहाँहरुको चाहिँ ध्यानमा राखेर गर्नुपर्छ. But I'll just play this song. This is titled हेठुली नाकैमा फुली डिजेल मोटर चढेर त्रिशुली. He gives a beautiful introduction as well. Internet महाराज काम गर्नुस्. यो चाहिँ मैले इन्डियानाबाट एक्सेस गर्न भएको VPN हालेर भएन भने I can play it later. I'm sorry, I think it doesn't work. तर गीतको धुन चाहिँ कस्तो छ भने हेठुली नाकैमा फुली डिजेल मोटर चढेर त्रिशुली. There's something, it goes something like मैले नसुनेको धेरै भयो. तर for Shyamji to like listen to a collection at 8 AM and then decide like, yeah, I'm going to be performing this, it was really a powerful moment. Going forward, there's been a lot of change in Nepal ever since Bech's visit. Opening of borders and the hippie trail 1960s to 70s ko kura गर्ने हो कि panchayat rule and curtailing of identities जुन अघि नै हामीले कुरा गर्यौं 1960s देखि 90s सम्म को गर्ने हो कि people's movement 1 1990 को गर्ने हो कि Nepali civil war 1996 देखि 2006 को गर्ने हो कि अनि ousting of monarchy, that's another part there. And growing Nepali diaspora since the 90s, or even 80s, I guess. People's movement 2 and Madhesh movement, we should not forget that, 2006. And of course, Nepal earthquake, which was one of the catalysts why I ended up going to Indiana University. And COVID-19, I mean, can we even forget that thing? So there's been so many different changes. अब यो चाहिँ एक किसिमको superficial changes हरुको कुरा गरे. Like भित्री तहमा त फेडरल रिस्ट्रक्चरिङ को कुरा गर्ने हो कि like a lot more के भन्छ पपुलर मिडिया को चाहिँ राइज को कुरा गर्ने हो कि इन्टरनेट अथवा टेक्नोलोजिकल एक्सेस अलिकति बढेको कुरा गर्ने हो कि अनि डेमोक्रेटाइजेसन अफ लाइक हुन्छ नि people getting to choose what they want to put out there instead of depending on mass media that was state sponsored त्यो कुरा गर्ने हो कि there's been so many changes, so many continuities as well. You lost changes and adaptation in the quest for continuing traditional practices connected to spaces and practitioners. Yes, we've lost practitioners, we've lost spaces, but then people are also adopting to like the changes. Bech Collection I think there is a need for networking. Like for example, I was working on one of the slides and it is saying ल्युक जेरस्टार्ड भन्ने मान्छेको चाहिँ फोटो रहेछ अनि इन्टरनेटमा कोही गुगल सर्च गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ ल्युक जेरस्टार्डले चाहिँ नेपाल भिजिटको अनि एभरेस्टमा लाइक भिजिट गर्दाखेरिको चाहिँ एउटा पडकास्ट रहेछ कहिलेको रहेछ भन्दा 1968 को रहेछ विच इज रियली रेलेभेन्ट फर पिपल वर डुइङ ब्याक स्टोरिज होइन किनभने युआर एबल टु लाइक लिसन टु समबडीज ओपिनियन्स फर्मड एट द्याट टाइम त कस्तो थियो त त्यो बेलाको नेपाल होइन सो आई थिङ्क देयर इज अ निड फर नेटवर्किङ दि अदर वान इज अब आइएम सो सरी है अहिले यहाँ राम्रोसँग देख्दैन तर यो चाहिँ म काम गरिरहेको थिएँ वान अफ द स्लाइड्समा एन्ड आई नोटेड के भन्दा तपाईँले यहाँ हेर्न सक्नुहुन्छ नोट्स फ्रम दीक्षान्त दीक्षान्त वाज द प्रिभियस स्कलर वर्किङ अन दिस अनि नोट्स फ्रम सुयाश अनि इन्ट्रेस्टिङ टु नोट द्याट दिस आइडिया ह्याभिङ द बिल्डर्स ह्यान्ड्स कट अफ टु एभोइड रिडुप्लिकेसन is commonly mentioned with regards to many other buildings in South Asia. The most famous one is how Shah Jahan ordered the erection of Taj Mahal and then chopped the hands of the builders. So एउटा vernacular architecture को कुरा गर्ने हो भने अथवा South Asian history in general को कुरा गर्दाखेरि how these kind of telltale अथवा motif index को कुरा गर्यो is हाम्रो सेवाजीसँग so how these ideas are like very much possible to find in the Bech collection. So there is the need for contemporary historiography. History भन्ने त सबले बुझ्नुहुन्छ है historiography भन्नेको बुझ्नुहुन्छ ethno students especially historiography as in history किन यसरी लेखियो कसले लेख्यो के कारणले लेख्यो के कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ यो हिस्ट्री यसरी लेखिन गयो that is what we understand as historiography. So नेपालको हिस्ट्री एक ठाउँमा छ तर हिस्टोरी त्यसरी लेख्नुमा कस्तो हालतहरू छ के कस्ता कन्डिसनहरू छ त्यसलाई पनि मध्यनजर गर्नु पर्यो अर्को पर्यो जस्तै क्रिटिकल रिइभ्यालुएसन अफ आर्काइभल मटेरियल्स जस्तै दीक्षान्तले चाहिँ यहाँ के नोट गर्नुभएको थियो भने ब्यासी ट्रेडर भनेर थियो टेरेन्स बेकले अनि दीक्षान्तले चाहिँ Your culture group has been given the name Vyasi. As far as I know, there are no ethnic caste groups called Vyasi. And Suyash Kumar Neupane appears in 2018, 2019 and says or adds, Vyasi is mentioned as one of the caste groups of Nepal in the Population Monograph of Nepal Volume 2 published in 2014. So, मभन्दा अगाडिको स्कलरले के गर्नु भएको छ त्यसमा मैले के एड गर्न सक्दछु त This is not a criticism of Dikshant. This is more like okay, यो रहेछ तर हेर न यस्तो इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा फेला पर्यो यार आई थिङ्क दिस विल हेल्प एड मोर कन्टेक्स्ट टु वाट वी आर टकिङ अबाउट इन द बेक कलेक्सन अब अर्को कुरा चाहिँ द निड फर रिएजुकेटिङ आवरसेल्फ जस्तै वुमन होइन अब ज हार्ट भनेर हामीले चाहिँ नेम चेन्ज गर्यौँ अनि हाम्रो डिरेक्टरले चाहिँ त्यहाँ के चाहिँ ऊ गर्नुभयो भने though more commonly used, Jew's harp is no longer preferred due to racist connotations. Jaw harp is the preferred term and is more accurate description of how the instrument is played, even though it's not a harp at all. So I think, like indirectly, we oftentimes end up resorting to the things that we know because it's in our comfort zone or that is what we are well acquainted with or like हामी त्योसँग वाकिफ छौँ भन्दैमा. But I think there's always a need to reevaluate this is what is happening in contemporary times, and probably we need to reevaluate and redecide on how to do this thing. We are more or less re-educating ourselves. Like adding more context. Just there was one slide I was working on, and then I added. I have decided this timestamp based on how different songs sound, but an expert opinion from someone within the culture would be very advantageous. Since there's been a lot of changes and federal restructuring, Nepalko context we should be also thinking of this particular book. एउटा कुरा चाहिँ अघि मैले अलिकति भने पनि रिप्याट्रिएसनको कुरा गरेँ हैन आई थिंक हामी चाहिँ आर्काइभ्स भयो भनेर वी शुडन्ट बी इन द पोजिसन टु से पीपल शुड कम टु अस एन्ड द्याट्स हाउ विल गेट द नलेज or information about how we should be correcting ourselves. I think we should be reaching out to them and we should be the ones to initiate access so that evaluation goes. किनभने access बिना assessment हुन सक्दैन archives को केसमा. But those who made it possible, and Helen Ross I talked about, your catalog saying I think NMA was having some sort of issue with working out with the Bech collection, and Dr. Moira Marsh, who made it possible for the catalog to be available to us in a digital format. And at the same time, there are also Nepali people who were working on the Terence Bech catalog. Just a name Porsu. Ashtamangal Vajracharya, consultant, 1966 देखि 1969 Punya Ratna Vajracharya, translator, 1971 देखि 1973 Bobby Chetri, translator, 1972 1978 Prem Guru, field assistant, 1967 1969 Shankar Kumar Jha, PhD, translator, consultant, 1971 1973 Harko Bahadur Thapa Magar, porter, 1967 1968 Hari Prasad Manandar, research assistant, 1969 1973. Like all of these people are there, like the contribution of many Nepali scholars about whom we would not have known area. यो चाहिँ catalog नभएको भए पहिलो कुरा यो catalog नभएको भए Bech collection नै बुझिदैन थियो, because यो साँचो हो क्या, त्यो एकदम बुझ्न एकदम कठिन छ. It's like very difficult to understand that collection from top to bottom. र तै पनि यो catalog यो साँचो बनाउनमा पनि त यति धेरै जनाको हात रहेछ नि त. And I think there has to be some sort of effort in recognizing their contribution, and an effort in trying to figure out like who are these people, like where, like what about them. Ani मुख्य कुरा एउटा अर्को के पनि छ भने यो सबै कुरा त हो, I think third or fourth slides मा देख्नु भयो. तर guess what, there is one whole cabinet yet to be explored about the Bech collection. I have not gone through the entire audio collection. I couldn't. Dikshant was not able to. So how many PhDs does it take to change the light bulb? How many PhDs will it take to go through the Bech collection is the question, right? There's like an entire whole cabinet. जुनमा चाहिँ हातले लेखेको life histories को कुरा गरेँ नि मैले, होइन? त्यो 120 वटा, sorry 45 वटा life history, 45 वटा त्यो कापी, त्यो पुरानो त्यो हुन्छ कि के भन्छ त्यसलाई, कार्डबोर्ड वाला कुट वाला कभर भएको कापी, त्यो साइडमा धागोको चाहिँ उ भएको. सो दोज काइन्ड अफ थिङ्स आर देयर. मजाले नेपाली अक्षरमा लेखेको छ, होइन? एक्सेसै भएको छैन. अब आर्काइभ्स अफ ट्रेडिसनल म्युजिकमा अर्को पनि एउटा सामान राख्ने ठाउँ हुन्छ जसलाई चाहिँ हामी डेड फाइल्स भन्छौँ. इट हेज नथिङ टु डु विथ पिपल डाइङ. इट्स बेसिकली जस्तै अब करेस्पोन्डेन्सहरू सकिएको अथवा चाहिँ थिङ्स जसको चाहिँ छेउ पुच्छर लागिरहेको छैन क्या, लाइक थिङ्स देयर आर आइसोलेटेड, होइन? त्यो आइसोलेटेड डेड फाइल्समा आई वाज डुइङ रिसर्च फर द्याट क्लास, जुन क्लास चाहिँ मोबिलिटी स्टडिजको लागि थियो. असाइनमेन्ट चाहिँ आर्काइभमा गएर पेपर लेख भन्ने थियो. घरमा खोल्छु, होइन, बेक कलेक्सनको करेस्पोन्डेन्सहरू हेर्छु, एन्ड वाट आई फाउन्ड वाज दिस म्याप, जुन चाहिँ टेरेन्स बेकको चाहिँ प्रपोज्ड फिल्ड वर्कको चाहिँ म्याप रहेछ कि. Like this guy was like saying, म चाहिँ यो ठाउँ जान्छु, and this is my map, and I'm also like wondering, probably adventure too, किनभने हिमालको क्षेत्र पनि छ, होइन? ब्रो त माउन्टेनियर पनि हो, है? अनि इट्स जस्ट अमेजिङ कि एउटा ग्रान्ट प्रपोजलको चाहिँ फोल्डर भित्र थियो कि. यदि मैले जुन जुन फाइल्सहरू एक्सेस भएको छ अथवा एक्सेसन भएको छ त्यसमा मात्र फोकस गरे भए आई वुड हेभ टोटली मिस दिस थिङ आउट, होइन? So I think there's so much to be looked into when it comes to the Bech collection. What this collection also did was like towards one of my semester, अहिले त म archival assistant होइन, because for the past 2 years I've been assigned to teach, teaching assistant बने, associate instructor बने. तर one of the papers I was able to write about यही Bech collection मा काम गरेको अनुभवले चाहिँ Sound Archives and Repatriation as a Public Practice. Class को नाम थियो, course को नाम थियो Public Practice in Folklore and Ethnomusicology, होइन? अब म्युजियममा अथवा पब्लिक सेटिङमा कसरी काम गर्ने भनेर. अनि what I was able to do is also like look into विगत 10 वर्षमा संसारभरिको डिफ्रेन्ट आर्काइभ्स र म्युजियमहरूले चाहिँ रिप्याट्रिएसन कसरी अगाडि बढाइरहेको छ त. अनि one of the things that's coming out is, मैले भनिगएँ, archives and museums reaching out to the people instead of people like चाहिँ त्यहाँ आएको एक्सपेक्ट गर्नु. एउटा एक्सेसिबिलिटीको कुरा भयो, एक्सेसिबिलिटी बिना एसेसमेन्टको कुरा निस्किन, होइन? एन्ड अल्सो लाइक एडिङ अफ कम्युनल मेमोरी र इन्स्टिट्युसनल मेमोरी. हामीले एनएमएमा कुरा गरेको मैले अस्ति के भनेको थिएँ भने म काठमाडौँ युनिभर्सिटीमा आएर आई गेभ अ टक अन बेक. इट्स एन इन्स्टिट्युसनल मेमोरी फर काठमाडौँ युनिभर्सिटी. But for everyone in attendance, it's a communal memory because all of you are in one way or another related to the field of ethnomusicology, right? So त्यसैगरी आर्काइभमा भएको बेक कलेक्सनको मटेरियल, what happens or what is going to happen if we make it possible to take it to communities जुनबाट चाहिँ त्यो रेकर्डिङ भएको थियो, and make it possible for them to listen to these songs, and make it possible for them to look at these photographs, अनि उहाँहरूले त फर्दर कन्टेक्स्ट एड गर्नुहुन्छ नि त हैन, जुन कन्टेक्स्ट दीक्षान्तु प्रेतीलाई पनि थाहा छैन, सुयश कुमार न्यौपानेलाई पनि थाहा छैन हैन, जुन कन्टेक्स्ट चाहिँ वी विल अल बी वन्डरिङ अबाउट, तर त्यो मटेरियल्सहरू चाहिँ उहाँहरूले पाउने बित्तिकै ए यो त यसरी हो, यो त यसरी गरिन्थ्यो, मैले पछिल्लो पटक यो वर्षसम्म देखेको थिएँ. द्याट्स लाइक अ ह्युज हेल्प फर अस. And you paper, I got a go-ahead from my professor to deposit it at the NMA. This was the news. So I'm going to be depositing this paper, which is an annotated bibliography. Annotated bibliography, like you select a bunch of resources, and every resource you write down a summary, 250 words. So anybody who goes through this particular paper will be able to see कि संसारभरि चाहिँ अरू ठाउँमा कसरी रिप्याट्रिएसन भइरहेको छ and what is there to be learned. मैले त्यसमा आफ्नो ओपिनियन्सहरू पनि राखेको छु. अब अघिल्लो जीवनमा मैले भनेको थिएँ आज एउटा अर्को इन्ट्रेस्टिङ कुरा पनि सेयर गर्नेवाला छु भनेर हैन. So one fine day I came to the archives of traditional music. I think it was probably a Monday or it was बिदा पछिको दिन हैन. अनि Dr. Burdett, Alan Burdett, director at the archives, उहाँले चाहिँ सुयश like can you come up to the office as soon as you arrive? And I went to his office and के रहेछ भन्दाखेरि त नेपाल कलेक्सन नेपालमा रेकर्ड भएको के भन्छ कलेक्सन रहेछ क्या, which was from another person जसको path crossed with Terence Beck 1968 देखि 1969 सम्मको field recordingहरू, and Catherine Christian and Jean Fisher were in Nepal at the same time. अनि यो चाहिँ primary like accession छ मैले गरेँ. I have yet to hear किनभने यो digitize भएको छैन. So can you imagine like what it might hold? You know, the more information that we might have from that time. And this is a much smaller collection compared to the Bech collection. So what I'm trying to say is there's so much to learn about. हुन्छ नि ethnomusicology को नेपालमा रोल अथवा कसरी सेप लियो, आर्काइभिङको इम्पोर्टेन्स के छ, आर्काइभ भएर हामीलाई चाहिँ के फाइदा हुनेवाला छ, फाइदा भन्दा पनि हाउ क्यान बी बेटर सर्भ द कम्युनिटी व्हेन इट कम्स टु लाइक अन्डरस्ट्यान्डिङ देयर हेरिटेज एन्ड देयर ट्रेडिसन भन्ने कुराको लागि चाहिँ आई थिङ्क समथिङ लाइक दिस इज रियली अमेजिङ. अनि आई थिङ्क दिस वाज रियली अमेजिङ मोमेन्ट फर मी, किनभने वाउ लाइक देयर इज अनदर कलेक्सन अबाउट नेपाल, इज द्याट वाट यु आर ट्राइङ टु टेल मी. अनि यसमा पनि नक्सा छ, यसमा पनि आई थिङ्क ह्यान्ड रिटन फिल्ड नोट्सहरू छ, थिङ्स द्याट आर लाइक इन्डिस्पेन्सिबल टु एनी स्टुडेन्ट अफ एथ्नोम्युजिकोलोजी. अनि द्याट इज अल आई हेभ फर यु टुडे. अनि आई थिङ्क आई प्रोबेबली लेफ्ट एभ्री वान विथ मोर क्वेसन्स देन एन्सर्स, एन्ड आइ एम ओके विथ द्याट बिकज आई बिलिभ देयर इज अलवेज टाइम फर मोर कन्भर्सेसन. थ्याङ्क यू.